Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. This is live stream number 1146. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. We are certainly not engaged in any sort of rocket surgery or anything of the like. No, we're just hanging around talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I will normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby, which I shall be doing tonight. Because I will talk about how you can approach running a tabletop role-playing game for players who have only played video games. And I'll be very honest, it can be a true challenge for the game master. We're going to discuss that a little bit later. But of course, before we do that, we are going to tackle the latest in tabletop gaming news. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. Come on, you know the drill by now. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 minutes. I know, these days, practically a lifetime before you can take part in chat. So, of course, if you check both those boxes, you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. So first out the gate tonight is the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D. She is normally lurking in the shadows, but she just jumped right on out to say hello to everyone. She happens to be one of our chat moderators. Sean O'Donnell's with us, as is Semper Buffo, Wallona's Cave, Gleewin RX, and Keithulhu. So welcome, everybody, as Kevin R. Smith pops on in too. Welcome aboard, everyone. I will point out, I have had a very irritating day. Very irritating. I will talk about that a little bit after I finish up tonight's news. But boy, I'm telling you, it is, this week has not been lining up very good at all. We'll discuss a little bit. All right, so let's get on into tonight's news, because a time traveler's guide to dinosaur hunting has passed the $270,000 funding mark over on Kickstarter. I've got the scoop from Splattered Ink Games. A Time Traveler's Guide to Dinosaur Hunting is a can't-miss two-book collection for fans of the Jurassic World franchise, video games like Ark, not a fan, and Turok, and Lovecraftian science fiction like Event Horizon. Survival is in doubt as you face colossal dinosaurs, mutated monsters, and alien horrors in an adventure collection featuring the largest dinosaur and prehistoric monster bestiary ever released for 5e. 2 books, endless adventures. A Time Traveler's Guide to Dinosaur Hunting is a, once again, 2-book set that includes more than 600 pages of content to provide you and your players more freedom, more fun, and more adventure. Join the hunt with a dozen 5e adventures, unique player options, and a bestiary containing 300 dinosaurs and prehistoric monsters. The authors started this project because they wanted to explore a theme they hadn't seen much in role-playing games: dinosaurs. Sure, there's some dinosaurs in a few mainstream adventures, but not enough. The author loves dinosaurs. His kids love dinosaurs. Everyone loves dinosaurs. So they were left with the question, how can they bring a ton of dinosaurs together from different eras and bring in some science fiction and fantasy elements? Clearly, the answer is interdimensional time travel. Anytime, any world, in any setting you can imagine. All times and realities are connected through an anomaly called the confluence. In fact, the confluence is ultimately the power source of time travel in each of those worlds and times. Thanks to the confluence, you can go on an adventure to any world or time. Now, there is a short Kickstarter video. It's a little more than a minute in length. Let's give it a peek. The project has passed the $270,000 funding mark, and you can reserve a copy of the 2 hardcovers with PDFs for a time traveler's guide to dinosaur hunting. I swear I keep wanting to say monster hunting, but no, it is dinosaur hunting, for a $119 pledge. Or if you want to just grab the PDFs, you can do so for a $79 pledge through February 15th. Expected delivery is June of 2026. That I'm a bit surprised by. Kind of curious what those of you in chat might think of that. Myself personally, I think, I don't know, that would kind of dissuade me. I mean, it's bad enough backing Kickstarters when you have to wait a year for something. But when you're looking at about 18, maybe more months than that, I don't know. Although this looks really cool. Gotta say, the artwork looks pretty smashing. It really, really does. So Mike and Maddie C are joining us in chat. Welcome aboard. Mike says, oh, this won't age well once the reimagined dinosaurs as their real chubby, feathery appearances arrive. Keith Ulis said it'd be cool to play in a Land That Time Forgot / Land of the Lost type campaign with these books. Yeah, got to make sure you include those. What were they called? Slee stacks? So the reality is, I never watched Land of the Lost. Of course, I've seen The Land That Time Forgot. I've made fun of it. In fact, I want to say, I know I've shared the trailer in one of the, brief intermissions in the past. But yeah, I never watched Land of the Lost. I think as soon as the opening where the piece of paper goes over the waterfall and it's supposed to be, them on a raft, it's like, no, I'm changing the channel. As a kid, I'm like, no. Although the funny thing is, I think, wasn't that CBS? For some reason, it feels like that was a CBS Saturday morning show because it kind of was a battle between ABC and NBC for the best Saturday morning cartoons. And then CBS was always just way, way in third place. Mateo is with us. Welcome aboard. Moving right along. Soon hitting stores from our friends over at Kobold Press will be Campaign Builder, Dungeons and Ruins. Here's the skinny. Brave the Darkness, your ultimate guide to dungeon design. Challenge your players with journeys into subterranean halls and long-lost cities with Campaign Builder, Dungeons and Ruins, the ultimate dungeoneering tool. Dungeon and Ruins provides a comprehensive guide to creating engaging dungeons, terrifying traps, and much more. Campaign Builder, Dungeons and Ruins brings you everything you need. Fill your dungeons with 15 sample curses, 17 hazards, and 12 all-new traps, or concoct your own with a step-by-step guide to mayhem. New player options, including 6 new subclasses, 5 new heritages, 11 new talents, more than 40 magic items, and more than 15 new spells for your team of dungeon delvers. Develop advanced exploration and skill challenges to push your characters to their ultimate limits. Make each encounter count. Not how it should be in the first place. Learn the art of dungeon design and make best use of clever tricks, wandering monsters, and logical room mapping. Then put it all together to build mega dungeons for major campaigns. Keep your dungeon secrets close with a downloadable dungeon tracker sheet. Never lose track of your creation. Create perilous adventures in deep places today with Campaign Builder, Dungeons and Ruins. Right now, you can order the 256-page hardcover with PDF for an MSRP of $59.99. Of course, as with all of the Campaign Builder releases, there is going to be a map pack that will be available too. The PDF alone is out right now. I believe today was its release date. If you want to just grab the PDF, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $34.99. And I will take a guess. I will have an opportunity to review this. I did reach out to my contact at Kobold Press because there are a few things they've got cooking. I will share another news piece from Kobold Press tomorrow. But yes, they've got a bit going on. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. So as I would assume, okay, I'm not going to assume. Better not assume. I'm hoping that I have an opportunity to share a review of this because the reality is I've really liked the Campaign Builder releases that we have seen to this point. So pretty nice. Pretty nice. Tessie Trekkie's with us, as is Roger Perdome. We haven't seen Roger in a while. Good to see you popping on in. Sharon O'Donnell says they backed Splattered Ink's role-playing game Essentials acrylic tokens back in February. Those tokens are apparently hitting North America on the 31st, originally intended for November of 2023. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah, I remember seeing those tokens on the website for Splattered Ink Games. I thought, oh, those look kind of cool. Did not realize that it's over a year behind schedule as far as its Kickstarter. Maybe that's why they're indicating June of 2026 for a time traveler's guide to dinosaur hunting, because they figure, well, in case we haven't, in case we run into some problems. Roger Perdome says they haven't been around for about a month. Jobbing suddenly way too many Dungeons and Dragons games a few times a week. Watching on Memorex, as I say. Well, very cool. Very cool. Good to have you pop on in live. You've had an opportunity to come and hang out with the gang. Good to see you. All right, moving right along. Bundle of Holding actually has 3 new offers that have just popped up. In fact, they had another one pop up after I'd already put together this news piece. But I'm going to focus on the offer that's got the shortest run, because right now you can save on CBR+PNK from the Cabinet of Curiosities. And I've got the deets on the deal. Adventurer. This new CBR+PNK quick deal presents the complete line of CBR+PNK minimalist Forged in the Dark cyberpunk pamphlets from the Cabinet of Curiosities. In low prep, fast playing one-shot sessions, your team of runners living on the edge in the shadows of a gritty, ultra-violent world make their last run. Maybe you'll recover a payload from an abandoned AI-run hotel, or buy an encrypted Hosaka key in the corporate megapolis Mona Rise, or search Lunar Habitat Biosphere 5 for the escaped apex predator. The CBR+PNK core rules fit into 3 4-panel pamphlets. You can print each pamphlet on one legal-size sheet of paper, double-sided. Read the entire game on a lunch break, then create characters and start running one of this offer's one-sheet adventures in 15 minutes. For just $6.95, you'll get all 8 titles in the CBR+PNK collection, which has a retail value of $36.50, as DRM-free PDFs, including the complete CBR+PNK core rule sheets, along with the rookie character expansion, the plugins, which are rules options, Cyberpunk Hunters, and Plus Weird, and 4 runs: The Ghost of Adelaide, Mind the Gap, Mona Rise Megapolis, and Predator. These savings will run through February 4th. Tessie Trekkie says CBR+PNK gets their thumbs up. All 3 of them. Kevin R. Smith says the price for CBR+PNK is certainly attractive. Also looks great to run at cons. Tell you one thing I did notice is over on Drive-Thru RPG, the CBR+PNK core rule sheets, which clock in at 6 pages, is $9.99 for its regular price. I was like, what? And I mean, I understand it's Forged in the Dark. It's, super rules light, super quick and easy to get into. But I mean, $10 for a PDF that's 6 pages. I was like, what? I was like, come on. That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of like, hey, well, this bundle of holding is actually a pretty rockin' deal. Normally, we don't necessarily see like smashing deals from bundle of holding. This one I think is, because for $6.95, less than what you would pay for just the PDF of the core rule sheets, you get everything that's out for it. So pretty nice. Pretty nice. Glimmer RX's Dinosaur Hunter Kickstarter is at $285,000 with 2 weeks to go. By comparison, Castles and Crusades Reforged Kickstarter ended at $170,000. Yeah, but you're comparing apples to oranges. I mean, Castles and Crusades is OSR-styled fantasy role-playing from a niche company. And this is something that's dinosaurs, which we know you can put out the crappiest stuff as long as it's dinosaur related. People tend to jump on it. And it's for 5e. So I could see it. I could see it. All right, moving right along. Available in print and PDF from Dragon Peak Publishing and Goodman Games is Lullaby for the Volcanic Worm. And here's what I know. You were born and raised on the gorgeous tropical island of Milu. Only a single issue mars the idyllic beauty and peace of your life. the annual virgin sacrifice to the dragon that slumbers within the volcano. But after the village elder died, you decided to stop. No one had ever seen any dragon. What could go wrong? Now the dragon awakens and the volcano erupts. All the other villagers look to you, the virgins, or at least those thought to be virgins. You must ascend the volcano and present yourselves as sacrifices. This funnel adventure can easily be run in 2 to 3 hours, includes a new occupation table for the Isle of Milieu. All virgin related, maybe? I don't know. The 12-page softcover with PDF can be had over at the Goodman Games website. It carries an MSRP of $8. Or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $4.99. This looks kind of cool. Yeah, single session, quick playing funnel, 2-3 hours, rock it out. Seems like it might have a bit of its own sense of humor, right? So it's Limit RX is not just a volcano sacrifice, but a volcano dragon sacrifice. That sounds like Dungeon Crawl Classics, all right. Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I'd say it does. I'd say it does. On to our final news piece, now available in print and PDF from G. Hawkins, is Pestilence at Helithvorn for AD&D/Osric. And I've got Lowdown, an adventure for 6 to 8 4th to 6th level characters. In the days before the rise of the Jade Empire and the rule of the Serpent Men, the enigmatic Axelidians reigned in Helithvorn, and there built their cities amongst the reeds and the swamps and caverns below. They mastered sorcerous arts and paid homage to devils and terrifying elemental beings. In the end, their Serpent Men slaves rose up and rebelled against their rule, driving the Analixians into the lower caverns. There, they lingered on, slowly degenerating into a primitive and base level. In turn, the Jade Empire was cast into ruin, and the former slaves of the Serpent Men occupied parts of the once great city. Finally came the cultists of Thule, worshippers of disease and inheritors of Serpent Man sorcery, enemies of civilization and the barren and long-felt, searching for a weapon of great power. I have the power! Well, not yet. I'm searching for a weapon that's got great power, but I'll have it! This is an adventure of warring cults and lost civilizations. This module presents a time and exploration-focused site that can be used with existing Gunderhofen campaigns or slotted easily into any other milieu. It consists of over 300 keyed areas detailing a disease-afflicted and doom-laden village under assault by corrupted, power-hungry cultists, a hex-crawl region, and a main adventure site of ruined temples, tombs, and a 5-level dungeon and 2 planar complexes. The 120-page hardcover with PDF is available over at Drive-Thru RPG for $24. Let's pause for a minute and let's compare that to 6-page PDF for 10. I'm just saying, I'm not knocking Cyber+PNK. I'm just saying. If you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so as well over at Drive-Thru RPG for $12. Gotta say, this looks really good. And the author has Gunderhofen was a pretty big deal. I know I shared news about it. I don't know if it was kickstarting or if it had just come out and I was sharing news about it. There's also another adventure, I'm trying to remember what it's called, that they're actually really well known for. And in fact, even Bryce over at 10-Foot Pole liked it. Which, you know, if you follow 10-Foot Pole, you know that doesn't happen too often, right? So Yes, this looks kind of cool. This looks kind of cool. All righty. So that's it for the tabletop gaming news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by gaminggang.com first. Click on one of her banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do go a long way to keeping the gaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, I don't know, why did I stick my tongue out there? Blah. Oh, I'm working on my thumbnails. That must be it. If you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the gaminggang.com or the Gaming Gang channel to be valuable resources, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Wonderful. And there are some of you who pop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations. And this month, an extra big thank you to Joshua Edwards, Will Burton, Toothless, Agile Monk, and of course, friend of the show, the Madman. Also happens to be one of our chat moderators. I think this is his gaming night, one of his gaming nights. That's why we don't have him hanging out in chat. But thank you to all of you out there who utilize those banner ads and or swing on by paypal.me/thegaminggang. It is much appreciated. All righty. Kevin R. Smith said just went over to Kobold Press and got their Kickstarter PDF of Dungeons and Ruins. So, wow. So wait a second. So Kevin, did you find out about it from me before they got a hold of you with an email? Gleeman RX says, prediction, Castles and Crusades dinosaur campaign? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's the sort of stuff that the trolls are into. Hey, so speaking of Castles and Crusades, so last night we're talking about keeper tips for Call of Cthulhu, and Castles and Crusades came up prior to getting into the topic. And I said, oh yeah, hey, I'll mention them in just a few minutes. And of course I forgot. Yeah, it happens. I tend to float stuff out. I'm a tease. What can I tell you? And then I don't put out. Yeah, right. So there you go. Anyway. So speaking of my friends over at Troll Lord Games and the reforged Castles and Crusades, well, looky what showed up. So I have the 3 reforged books. So I do have the Player's Handbook, Castle Keeper's Guide, and Monsters and Treasure. And I also received Gary Gygax's The Hermit. So we were talking about changing the stream, changing up the stream a little bit. Yes, there you go. Sean O'Donnell said Steve likes UFOs way more, I guess. Sean must have listened to my interview with Stephen Chenault. Hey, trust me, there was a lot of UFO discussion that was not on mic. So yeah, I was like, wow. Sean says, I totally did listen. Kevin R. Smith says they got their Player's Handbook for Castles and Crusades earlier this week. Yeah, I actually got this last Friday. I think it showed up on Friday. The box showed up on Friday. So, like I said, I actually was going to mention it yesterday that I'm like, Anyway, so we were talking yesterday about kind of changing up the stream, the live show. And I think what I'm going to do is we are going to do a mix of first looks and topics. And the reason why I'm only looking at doing first looks, not reviews, I, on occasion, quite a while ago, I did some live reviews, and it was just trying to do a review and follow chat and answer what people are curious about in chat, and then getting back onto the, it's a huge pain in the ass. So, I think we will start that next Tuesday. Why not? It's a new month, right? So, new month, February, we'll kick that off. So, I think we will still do, well, at least next week and the week after that. I will do Monday, not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as far as the stream goes. And then I'm still kicking around if I'm going to drop it down to Tuesday and Thursdays or what. Well, we'll see. We'll see what's cooking. And it's, people were talking about this yesterday in chat and throwing out some ideas and things like that. It's just, I only have a limited amount of time that I can devote to the gaming gang. Now, that's the website, videos, the live stream, the whole shebang. I have a limited amount of time. So I have to focus on what's going to provide the most bang for the buck, in essence. What am I going to get the highest return on compared to the time invested? So, well, we're going to see what happens. I don't know. I'll take a guess. We're probably going to float around the same number of views. I guarantee no matter how many times I mention this when the stream starts and then like during the news portion saying, hey, stay tuned. I'll be doing a first look at whatever. I will still get comments from people like, oh man, I had to wait 42 minutes before you got into it. And there'll be timestamps, of course, like always. So I had somebody comment. So I was telling you, it's been an irritating week. So I had somebody comment on, I can't remember what video it is, but it was a live stream. And, I know, it was discussing the Year Zero engine. And the comment was 14 minutes into the video, and you still aren't talking about the topic. I'm out of here or something like that. I'm leaving. So I just ignore stuff. If people are super rude, I just delete it or block them or, whatever. But I was sort of like, come on. So I wrote back, and I wasn't an asshole about it. I said, well, you do realize there are timestamps right on the video as you're watching it. If you're watching it on a tablet or a phone, it's right there. If you're watching it on a computer screen, it's right there in the timeline of the video. You can see it. Now, you can't just touch it like you could on a tablet or a phone, but it's there. And that's because there are timestamps in the show notes. So I said, I can't help you. I can put timestamps on here, but if people don't look at the timeline or they don't look at the timestamps, there's nothing I can do. So they wrote back, well, I drive for a living. I started the video and I put the phone in my pocket. Now, I didn't comment on that, but I thought to myself, so why is that my problem? How is that my problem? It's somebody who, saw what the topic was, didn't bother looking to see, they're not familiar with the show or anything like that. They don't know what the format is. I run into that all the time. But it's sort of like, okay, so I guess I should try to figure out what I can do for those one viewers out there who may pop by and see a video on the channel, who happen to drive for a living and play videos and shove their phones in their pockets while the videos play. It's like, Sean Riddell says they do courier work on the side and they have a cochlear implant. I know I just said that wrong. And do essentially the same thing. It'd be a me problem, not a Jeff problem. I know, but it was, the only reason why I responded to the comment was it was sort of like accusing me of being, an asshole who, oh, this is clickbait. You said you're going to talk about this, and 14 minutes into the video, they didn't say clickbait, but it was kind of like implied that it's like, oh, this guy's just, trying to trick people into watching his video. Yeah, because there is just so many people out there on YouTube just screaming for Year Zero engine videos. So that got me started. So then you may recall I did my game sale that I split. Yes, I split with St. Jude's. So I had sent out, and I almost never ship to foreign countries because it's always a pain in the ass. Glenn RX says, I like Year Zero. Yeah, but you're not sitting there going, oh my gosh, there's a new Year Zero engine video out. I got to watch it. Like people are like with D&D. Oh, well, look. Gotta watch that. Flaming Heron's popping on into chat. Good to see ya. Flaming Heron happens to be one of our other chat moderators as well. So we've got both Sarah D and Flaming Heron with us. I see Mini Chest has popped on in. I gotta say that nickname's not ringing a bell. So if it is your first time visiting in chat with us, welcome aboard. And if you've been here before, well, welcome back. So anyway, I had one person purchased some role-playing game books, and they were in Canada. And then I had somebody else who purchased a good number of books, and they wanted them shipped to Singapore. So I went to the process and everything. So I used Global Post, which is affiliated somehow with the U.S. Post Office. Because for one, to ship a 6-pound box, the dimensions of these books, 3 of them, so 3-inch depth, I believe. So we're looking at 13 by 12 by 3, 6 pounds. Everybody else wanted over $100. And I was like, what? And it was half of that for this Global Post. Okay. So of course, and it asks, what is it? I put role-playing game books and value $150. Sent it off. Same day, I sent the package that went to Singapore. Bigger box, heavier box. I saw that DHL wanted $371 to ship it. So Global Post, it was $151. And of course, the person purchasing it, they paid the shipping, and they purchased over $400 in books. Went out the same exact day. Last week, I got an email from the person in Singapore saying, hey, I haven't received the package. And I take a look and it seems like it's lost according to the tracking number. Okay. All right. Well, I said, I have found that with international shipping, a lot of times tracking information is absolutely useless. Oh, there you go. Mini Chess says it's typical DM. Well, welcome back, Ben. Anyway. So I said, yeah, a lot of times it's because I've had stuff sent to me from companies overseas, and I'll take a look at the tracking and it'll be like, okay, so it's not even out of, the UK yet. And then the next day it shows up. It's like, oh, okay. All right. So anyway, on Monday, or no, I'm sorry, I take that. Yeah, it was on Monday. I get a package. I'm like, oh, I wonder what this is. And I look and it's addressed to me and everything. Oh, okay. Open it up. Now I'll be damned. It's the books that I sent to the person in Canada. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I call up this Global Post and they're like, oh, we needed more information for customs. And I said, well, how much more information can I give you? They're role-playing game books, and they have a value of $150. Isn't that what customs needs? And they're like, well, we sent an email. And I'm like, no, bullshit. You did not send an email. Because I save all of my emails to the gaminggang.com address. I save them for like 18 months. I'm like, absolutely not. You did not. So then they're like, oh, well, we're very sorry about this. So we'll refund your shipping. I'm like, okay. And, of course, because I took payment through PayPal, I used the PayPal shipping option as far as sending stuff out. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. They said, oh, you'll get it 24 hours. I said, okay, great. Okay. 24 hours goes by, nothing. Today, nothing. So I call up again, of course, get somebody else. And I'm asking, I'm like, so where is my refund? Number one, wanted to check on the refund. And then I wanted to find out what the hell's going on with this package to Singapore. So, of course, the package to Singapore, they tell me the same thing I can look at on the screen, that last time anybody saw it or anybody indicated anything going on with it was December 21st, and it was still in the U.S. In fact, it hadn't even left Illinois. Because this Global Post has I guess they've got a few locations in the state that essentially U.S. Post Office drops it off there and then whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, great. So I asked, well, where's my refund? So what are you talking about? I said, the refund, and I gave them the tracking number. I said, when I called on Monday, I was told I'd get a refund back and it would be within 24 hours. Person says, we don't do that. And of course, obviously enough, this is not in the United States. So, I even said, when they said what their name was, I said, oh, that's your name you're using today? So they said, we don't do that. You have to file a claim. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I just talked to somebody at this same location on Monday, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll put through a refund within 24 hours for you. Well, if we don't do that, you have to fill out a claim. So he said, oh, I guess you might as well fill out a claim for the other package too. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to have to send the package to Canada again and either roll the dice to try to see if these assholes for Global Post can deliver something, or try to find some way to get it up there, without spending an arm and a leg. Like I said, it's like $120 through UPS. I was like, what the fuck? And then with the package that went to Singapore, if that's somehow lost, yeah, good luck getting these claims handled, I guarantee. So I'm like, okay, great. So then what am I supposed to, am I supposed to refund this guy $550? So I'm going to be out the shipping, the books, what they paid, half of it, which went to St. Jude's. Like, fuck. And then today, I get an email from Columbia Games, and it's like, they're like, oh, here's 2 new videos for Quebec 1759, which is on Kickstarter right now. And I look, and it's, a couple of war game content creators. I have no issue with that. No video from me. I'm like, what the hell? So I go and I look. It's not on the Kickstarter. I'm like, Mateo says Global Post website says sell worldwide without the hassle. Yeah, my ass. It says, China, Mateo also says, China has the best international shipping. They wouldn't buy anything from state, 99% chance it won't get here. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Agile Monk is with us in chat. And Chris Lundgren's popping on in with his cockatiel buddy. It's been a while since we've seen Chris. Welcome back. Okay, so anyway, so I'm like, what the hell? And I had gotten an email, because of course I had emailed Grant at Columbia Games when I finished the video, because for one, and I even mentioned this, if you watch the show, you might remember me mentioning this, I don't do free Kickstarter videos. The only video I charge anybody for is for Kickstarters. And the main reason is you're asking me to help you make tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can pay me to produce the video. That's how I sort of look at it, But I didn't realize that Quebec 1759 was a Kickstarter. So anyway, so Grant had sent me it, and then I saw, the Kickstarter launched, and we had played it, but I wasn't, ready to shoot video for it. And I was like, oh crap. Like, I gotta get this video out. So of course I fucking raced to get this video done and up. And then it's not even part of the Kickstarter. It's not even been shared on social media by anybody associated with Columbia Games. So I got an email back from Grant when I said, hey, yeah, the video's up. Use it however you want. And by the way, I charge for Kickstarter videos. I did. I wrote that. I was like, but you know what? We go back. I'll throw you a bone this time. So he wrote me back and he was like, oh man, that video is great. Oh, it's excellent. I'm going to share it everywhere. He hasn't shared it anywhere. So I emailed him today and I said, hey, well, you know what? I guess you didn't like the video that much because it's not part of the Kickstarter. It's not in the newsletter that went out from Columbia Games that actually has a video that came out after I shared mine with far fewer views than my video. Not that it's, like a huge number of views. It's like 850 or something like that. A part of it being that because no one shared it, right? It's like, okay. And yeah, so anyway, so I was like, I guess you didn't like it that much. So as I said, it's been it's been an irritating week. Agile Monk says, yeah, you have reasonable fees for your Kickstarter videos. I've seen your pricing. Yeah. You know, what can I do? Right? I don't want to like sit there and because I've heard some of the prices some people charge for their Kickstarter videos. I've heard of some who say that they don't charge anything. We've talked about this before. Oh, we never charge for Kickstarter videos, and I have had publishers tell me how much they charge them for Kickstarter videos. Whatever, yeah, it doesn't matter to me. But yeah, I mean, you know, we actually have a package where it's, if I remember right off the top of my head, what is it, 400 or 450? And it's for the video, consulting on the Kickstarter project, and advertising on the website. Fluent RX says that Singapore order is harsh. No good deed goes unpunished. Yes, I know. Yes. Roger Perdome says it's actually referred on the Quebec 1759 Kickstarter page in the section, the first Columbia block war game. That is new because it wasn't there today. Trust me, I looked. So. Mike says, I hate it when Customs opens their box in front of them and they have to say in toothy English accent, that ain't mine, baby. All righty. Okay. So anyways, like I said, just a super irritating week so far. It's not that the Columbia Games isn't that big a deal, but on top of the other stuff, it's like, oh, for crying out loud. Like, come on, man. All right. So tonight we are actually going to talk about running tabletop role-playing games for people who've only played video games. And I got to say, it's challenging. We're going to talk about it. This is an open discussion. It's not just me just, spewing, right? So by all means, I want folks to chime in, both in chat and if you happen to be watching this after the fact on Memorex. By all means, I certainly welcome your comments in the comment section too. So we're going to get into that topic in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Harry, I just love to go to the movies with you because you always have money for popcorn.
Oh. Surprise. Let's go and get a hot dog.
I can't, Harry. Your brother is holding my hand.
My brother? Well, I thought he was your brother. How about a chocolate sundae?
I'm going to visit my grandmother that day. Who's going to go to the snack bar to get some 7-Up, the Uncola?
I'll flip before.
Harry, my back still hurts from the last time.
Refreshing as the land of sky blue water, land of lake and pine, cool enchantment, and the beer refreshing.
The land of sky blue waters, a big, fresh land. You can see the bigness, feel the freshness. And in Ham's beer, you can taste it. A taste as big and fresh as the land of sky blue waters. Ham's, Ham's.
Refreshing as the land of sky blue water, and the beer refreshing, and the beer refreshing.
Want a cup of Wilkins coffee?
What'll Mr. Wilkins do if I don't?
Oh, he'll probably put his foot down.
Introducing Munchos.
Munchos.
The all-new potato snack from Frito-Lay.
Like Munchos.
It's not a potato chip, it's a potato crisp.
Love Munchos.
It's thicker than a potato chip, thus it's crisper with more potato flavor.
Found Munchos.
Try them. You'll discover there's more to a Muncho.
Well, you certainly wouldn't be seeing that Hamm's commercial these days. Although the reality is, the Native American really gets the upper hand on the bear twice. But yes, sort of like, yeah, you see some of these commercials that you're like, There is one for Jell-O that I shared once. I'll have to see maybe about sharing it again. And it's like an Asian family or it's an Asian baby. And it is like, oh man. Oh boy. I think it's from like the 1960s too. So Gluman RX says Cookie Monster was originally a potato chip monster. Yep. That is true. He was a commercial. In fact, funny enough, a lot of people don't realize this. I'm sure there's a few of you out watching right now who do. But the first Muppet to become popular on television was Ralph. He was on the Jimmy Dean variety show. And yes, he was the first Muppet to really become popular on like primetime television. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. All right, everybody. So tonight we are going to discuss running tabletop role-playing games for people who have only played video games. And this can really be challenging. And before you really start getting into investing a whole hell of a lot of time in doing this, because I'll be very honest, and I'm sure this might be pretty unpopular opinion, but there are going to be some people who are video gamers who, no matter what you try to do, they are just never going to connect with tabletop role-playing games. Never. Especially when it's younger people. Once again, I don't mean any offense by saying this, but younger people who have not had to actually like utilize their imagination. Everything is visual. Everything's a visual presentation to them, so that even if they're, like, say, reading a book, a fiction book for pleasure, or maybe they're trying to play a role-playing game, all they can ever process the information that's being given to them is by way of what they've seen. So, Clement RX says, thanks to YouTube, they were able to recently watch Jim Henson performing as Ralph on Arsenio Hall soon before he died. Oh, wow. Sean O'Donnell says, almost everyone they play with is a video gamer, hadn't played tabletop role-playing games first. So this is their episode. Flaming Heron points out kids don't read these days. Well, they do read, but they only read in tiny chunks, and they don't read fiction. Well, I take that back. There's a lot of shit that people of all ages read online that's fiction, but it's not presented as fiction. But that's another story for another time. So yes, I think if it's if it's people who are like, say, my age, I know quite a few of you hanging out in chat are in the ballpark of my age. We grew up at a time when, as we were small kids, we essentially had whatever was on the major networks and then our local UHF channels and maybe a PBS channel, depending on where you lived, as far as television goes. You know, VHS really didn't become a thing until I was, well, VHS didn't become a thing as far as like renting movies that didn't cost you an arm and a leg until I was in high school. As far as genre movies that were out there, science fiction, fantasy, so forth, we had a few, but we certainly didn't have too many. I mean, you know, the reality is these days, no one would go and see a movie like, oh, I don't know, like Ice Pirates, right? You'd have like opening night, there'd be 3 people in the theater. Nowadays, for a movie like that, because that'd just be straight to, you know, a streamer. But back in the day, it was like, wow, yeah, hey, it's a science fiction movie. All right. Hey, all right, let's go see it. And then they're like, oh, I wish I didn't see it. Actually, that one wasn't terrible. There were worse. There were far, far worse than that. But we would read a lot. I mean, I know myself personally, I don't read as much as I used to. I tend to listen to audiobooks, and I know it's not the same thing. Completely understand that. But it wasn't unusual for me on a weekend to go through 3, maybe 4 books. I could, in a day, read 500-600 pages without breaking a sweat. We don't see that anymore. And the funny thing is, I think it really affects the imagination that people have. Because, you know, you'd be reading Harry Harrison or, you know, Tolkien, Moorcock, you know, Silverberg, you know, all these hundreds of authors out there, Bradbury, and you had to picture these things in your head. And, you know, you usually didn't have a ton of information about it because the reality is you're a pretty poor author if you're going to sit there and like describe your main character down to, you know, the slightest, smallest detail. But we would picture these characters and these monsters and these spaceships and all these things in our heads because we had to. And of course, you know, my concept of what, is it Flinks and Pip? The little dragon with the wings, Ellen Dean Foster. You know, I guarantee that your little flying dragon looked a lot different than my little flying dragon until we saw them on the cover of a book. So Chris Lundgren says their parents used to send them to get books at the school book fair. I got so many ideas for running D&D as a kid. Flaming Heron said they actually designed their own worlds as a child. Then they ended up using them for role-playing games that they ran as an adult. Yeah, most definitely. Roger Perdome says they remember reading the Belgariad, 5 books in 5 days 40 years ago. Yeah, those were the days when you could actually sit there and be like, yeah, I'm going to devote the entire evening just reading a book. I do that a lot now, but those books tend to be like this, which is still fun. I enjoy myself doing it. But so I guess when I say I don't get a chance to read much, I don't get to read much fiction anymore. So the first thing I would ask, and something that you would want to keep in mind if you're going to look to run role-playing games for people who have only played video games, is, do they read? And I'm not saying that they have to crank out, 3 books in a weekend kind of reading, but do they read? Do they read for pleasure? Like my niece, she reads for pleasure. Now, she's not a huge bookworm. It's not like you always see her with a book, but she does read. My nephew Cameron, he reads here and there, bits and pieces, but usually if he's got a girlfriend, he's not reading much. So, but if they read for pleasure, and they don't have to read science fiction or horror or fantasy or anything like that, they can read any sort of fiction. It can be romance. It doesn't matter. If they do read, then you will not have as much work cut out for you as you will if they don't read. Because if they read, that means they have to have somewhat of an active imagination. And I've mentioned this in the past. I personally think not only does a game master need to have imagination in order to be successful, players do too. Players have to be, imaginative and be able to paint the picture of what the game master is telling them in their heads. And yes, I know we've got miniatures, we've got terrain, we've got all those kind of things that we can utilize. But the thing is, you still got to use imagination when you're playing. So, what to do if you get finagled into running a role-playing game for a group of people who have absolutely no idea whatsoever what a role-playing game is? Now, some folks out there would probably say, well, tell them to watch a few episodes of Critical Role or another actual play sort of video. And on one hand, I would say that's not necessarily a bad idea, because then they do get a feel for, what goes on at the game table, as long as it's an actual play where the things that go on around a game table actually are going on in the actual play. So as an example, I won't name the actual play, and the reality is I haven't watched really much of it. I think I saw all of 2 minutes, and it was just because a publisher was promoting it. But they were all sitting around on a set, and it's not Critical Role. They were all sitting around on a set, and they were all in like these high-backed chairs. And the game master is telling, he's telling the story, and he's got like this pipe that's not lit. He's just keeping, and then the players are, responding with what they're doing. There was no dice rolling that I saw. So right there, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be telling people to watch that, because then you'd be like, okay, I need you to roll dice. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? I thought we'd just all sit around the table in these high-back chairs. Where's the high-back chairs? Chris Lundgren says, I remember to this day reading Thomas Covenant. Boy, Thomas Covenant pops up here for a lot more often than I would have thought. And it's always Thomas Covenant. It's not other stuff by like Stephen R. Donaldson. It's always Thomas Covenant. Says they remember to this day reading that series at the age of 12. Still gives me irritation at 57 years of age now. Books do stick with you. I remember taking the Elfstones of Shannara, finishing that book, while nearly finishing that book and flinging it across the room. I was so ticked off. Mateo says their mother's a librarian, so they read all the time, read all the time as a kid. I think it's very important to read in the formative years for vocabulary, critical thought, imagination. That's something else that's super important is context. Being able to understand context. Chris Lundgren says, does modern RPG games spell out too much information nowadays versus old school Renaissance or classic role-playing games, leaving less wiggle room for homebrew ideas? I wouldn't say that. I would say that I need to take a sip. I'll say that. Limit RX is asking, what was the issue with Elfstones of Shannara? Yeah, I'll finish my thought here and then I'll tell you. I think nowadays, modern adventures is what we're talking about here, because we're talking about running adventures. Doesn't matter what the rule book is, as far as, if your players have imagination or not. What do you mean you can't imagine the advantage rolling 2 20-sided dice? What do you got to wrap your head around? I'm just telling you what to do. I think nowadays modern adventures are far, far more verbose and padded than they were in the past. And a lot of times, we've discussed this before, I'm an affiliate of Drive-Thru RPG, but there is a shit ton of garbage on Drive-Thru RPG. And a lot of times it's just page count or freelancers being paid by the word. So they just fill up as much as they possibly can. We talked about this before. As a game master, if you're running a dungeon delve, you don't necessarily need to know all the things that happened in a room 150 years ago. You need to know what is the condition of that room now and how does it come into play. Oh, it used to be a bedroom and the furniture is all in shambles. Okay. No monster in there? No? Okay. All right. No treasure? Nothing to find? No hidden doors? None of that? No? Okay, then I don't give a fuck who slept there 100 years ago. It was like, who cares? I mean, it's okay if it's like, oh, well, this was the princess's bedroom. And then, okay, this is what's going on there now. That's fine. Of course. That's just fleshing things out. But when it starts getting into the whole, a lot of detail, you're like, what are you talking about? No one cares about this. This doesn't matter. But we do see a lot of padding with modern adventures. Some people just, you got to also keep in mind that there's probably far less editing going on nowadays as opposed to in the past. And that's why you'll see more and more typos, misspellings, grammatical errors slip through in published books than we've ever seen in the past. And yes, I know people are talking about Troll Lord Games in chat. Yes, there are some errors that have slipped through the cracks on every print run. Supposedly taken care of. We're going to find out. We are going to find out. Because I plan on reviewing these reforged books. You may not be aware of that because I've already reviewed the 3. I don't really want to say core books. I'll say 3 main books for Castles and Crusades. But I am going to review these reforged books too. Even though there's just some things cleaned up still. But as far as even like, it drives me nuts. I'll see my news feed and I'll see like Variety, Newsweek, CNN, and they'll have titles that are like, they'll have misspelled words, or a word is completely missing from the title of the article, from the headline. And you're like, what? Seriously? It's like, come on. I take far more pride in the articles I post on my website to make sure that they are grammatically correct, things are spelled right. And yeah, on occasion, something slips through the cracks. I'm trying to rocket through something, and as soon as I see it, I fix it. It drives me nuts. That is a huge modern pet peeve of mine, is the just absolute destruction, willful destruction of our English language. Chris Lundgren says Yahoo News is terrible on the browser. Yahoo News is terrible in any format. Lot of clickbaity stuff. Sean O'Donnell says, once you get past the expectations of the new players, the main thing you should be doing to engage new players is ensuring your gameplay loops are engaging and structured properly. Ooh, listener Sean. If your mentality is that there's something off about the players, then you aren't trying to solve the problem. Hopefully, you wouldn't have a major problem. But, and this is, part of the topic, and this is why I said, this is a conversation. I'm not sitting here going, okay, well, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. How do you go about trying to run a role-playing game with people who just can't picture it, right? Okay, so here's one of the issues that I have found from people who only play video games. They're so used to, and Sean O'Donnell mentioned a loop, right? A gameplay loop. They're used to gameplay loops as far as certain tasks. So I have run role-playing games for people who have never played a tabletop role-playing game, and they were kind of curious about them. And right away, I could tell who was a reader and who was not. And you'll get people be like, so I don't understand. What do I do? That's something that you will hear all the time from people who are being introduced to role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, coming from, even if they've played Baldur's Gate 3. And what I always lead off with explaining a tabletop role-playing game is by telling them nothing's off the table. Anything is possible within reason, but whatever you think of, you can try. If, you're playing as a character, you tell me what that character's doing, and I tell them how the world around them reacts to what they're doing, or I tell them what the world is doing, and the player tells me how they react to that world. And I've had people say, well, so, what are my options? And it's like, your options are anything you want. Well, how do I fight monsters? And it's like, well, we'll go into like the combat in that once we get to it, but it's really easy. You're basically just telling me, what do you want to do? Or what do you want to try to do? And then, there might be a rule for that. Or I might say, okay, well, roll your dice, let's see what you get, blah, blah, blah. But I do find a lot of times that is like the main question I'll get from video gamers is, well, what do I do? Because they're used to playing in even, open world games. And don't get me wrong, I love video games. I really do. I've played video games nearly as long as I've played, tabletop games, role-playing games and such. In fact, I had, I forget which Apple it was, but it was the first one that actually came out with, like, you actually used a cassette player because the program was on a cassette. Yeah, and I saved up to buy one because I wanted to play games on it. But anyway, even like an open world game, there are limitations to what you can do. You can't just do anything your heart desires because there's only so much that's been programmed into that game. And that's something that I explain to players too, that it's like, well, even with the greatest video game out there, you still have limitations to what you can do with that game. Something else I try to tell people is I present a role-playing game as, imagine a movie where the special effects budget is unlimited. So anything goes. That's role-playing. Sharon Isle says what they did was try to work with what they could bring to the table. Worked out well once I stopped worrying about my story and focused on giving them stuff relevant to them. So what I'm curious about, because, yeah, the reality is a good game master, they're there to help facilitate a story, but they're not there to push a story. Even we talked about this last night when we talked about keeper tips for Call of Cthulhu, that you got to let your players go off and do what they want to do. And then, if need be, you can kind of wrangle them back. So Sean Down says his players are 9 and 10 years old. Oh, see, I'm thinking, people in their 20s. So 9 and 10-year-old kids, they're still in their developmental years. You're all good with that. I'm talking about older teens and things like that. People in their 20s, people even in their 30s are like, hey, I've heard about this Dungeons and Dragons thing. I played Baldur's Gate 3, so I know how to play. And it's like, well, not really. It's like, you know how to play the video game. But, okay, so some more people out there in chat. Let me see what you're taking here. So somebody was talking about session 0. Let me go back. Chris Lundgren says video gamers swing sword, grab items, grab more stuff, no role playing. Yeah, but I mean, that's how the video game is built. And any sort of role playing that's done is in the player's head. It's like, Baldur's Gate, right? Baldur's Gate 3, I should say. You've got your main character, and any role playing that's going on is going on in your head. That's kind of the reality of it. Of course, you've got some various different dialogue options based on your class, but for the most part, and then sometimes based on what you've already done. But for the most part, it's, once again, you've got a certain number of options to choose from, and that's what you're going to do. Fleming Heron says, this is why you need to run games with new players before they come to the table. Get them comfortable with how you run your games. Fleming Heron also mentions, tabletop role-playing games are more about choice and no markers of where to go next. Lumen RX is talking about Eleanor DiLorenzo and her Lost Mountain podcast for Vesson, which I reviewed. I liked it. I liked that adventure campaign. Talking about a session 0, a series of prologue sessions to get new players prepared for role playing. See, I'm with that. I am with you on that. Marzulk, I can't tell if I think that's an L. Looks like an iron elf, but I think it's an L. Says, what about the Elfstones book? Okay. So here I got spoiler alert, because I'm going to ruin the end of the book if you haven't read it. And that book is what? It's got to be 45 years old, maybe, thereabouts. Somewhere in that vicinity. So you have the elf characters, and you've got the one elf who's kind of our focal character, and he falls in love with this other elf. And they go off on this quest to go find the new seed for this tree of life or what have you. And of course, the monsters are all attacking. And it's not a bad book. I mean, at least Terry Brooks got away from his just, oh, hey, so this is Lord of the Rings light. So there was some originality to it. So you go through the whole quest with the two characters, and their relationship develops and all these other things. And then at the end, it turns out that the memory serves. The seed to the new tree of life isn't the seed, it's her. So she becomes the tree of life, and it's like, oh, okay, great. It's like, so you develop this whole relationship throughout the entire book, and then you basically go, yeah, up yours. I was like, what? I was like, ow. I would think if I read it now, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But I was like 13 or something. So Kevin R. Smith says spoilers don't matter much to them. First one was so derivative. Some of the writing's so stilted, they didn't bother to read any more of them. Flaming Heron says, sort of anticlimactic. Yeah. And it was kind of funny because like the big battle with the monsters was pretty good. It was pretty exciting. It was pretty cool. And I'm like, what? So, anyway, so I have to say, Sean O'Donnell is, bringing up some good points, especially if you're like introducing younger kids to role-playing games. And if you're introducing younger kids to role-playing games, I would probably lean towards something that does have a bit of kind of like a video game feel to it. So I did review the second edition of the Magical Land of Yeld. Really liked it, gave it a 10 out of 10. That would be the sort of game that I'd say, yeah, if you're going to introduce like younger kids to role-playing games, that might be something you look into. I don't know if I'd go straight for like, the D&Ds, the Call of Cthulhu's, the Pathfinder second edition remasters. Traveler, probably, yeah, I could see Traveler. I mean, it's, you're rolling 2 6-sided dice. Chris Lundgren says Hero Kids is great for kids to learn RPGs. I seem to recall reviewing that quite a few years ago. I shared a review of that. I've done a few reviews of some introductory role-playing games. But yeah, Sean O'Donnell, I would agree with that as a game master, you're going to have to adapt how you present the game when you have people who really aren't familiar with tabletop role-playing games and who never played any sort of games outside of video games. So I would say something that would be very important is make sure that you know how to paint a picture with words. Lewin RX says, so the girl becomes a tree and young Jeff throws the book across the room. I can see that. Flaming Heron says, the Lamentations of the Flame Princess? I'm kidding, obviously. Oh, yeah, sure. Might as well throw in human-occupied landfill. Let's say, might as well, let's double up. Although, yeah, the reality is those role-playing games are nothing alike. Sean Down says if you're lucky, they'll get the bug for it and want to explore more. I think something that's kind of an issue that's probably tough for people to get around, and I got to be honest, I don't know. I don't have an answer to how you would broach this, but there are people out there who are like, oh, yeah, I really want to play Dungeons and Dragons. I really want to play, Pathfinder, whatever. And they get the bug that, hey. Like, I know Elliot has gotten kind of dragged into, I don't know if he's doing it or not, but his sister-in-law wanted him to run Dungeons and Dragons for her kids. And it's sort of like, how do you go about tackling this? Because, part of it is like, well, okay, so for some people, it's the game master has convinced the players to give this a try. So the onus is really on the game master to make it entertaining, right? And, hopefully, as Sean points out, maybe they get the bug and, they want to play again. What do you do when you've got people who are like clamoring to play, but then as a game master, you find yourself kind of with an uphill battle trying to get them involved in the game? Kind of curious. I'm kind of curious. I don't know. So yes, I know that was our topic tonight was, running role-playing games for people who've only played video games. I wasn't implying that I had answers, right? I'm just kind of, there are some people that, just won't get it. And it probably would not be good for both the player and the game master to try to continue, because then it just becomes frustrating. It might become frustrating for the player, might become frustrating for the game master. So I think part of what I think is that, especially if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I want to introduce people into the hobby because maybe you don't have a group, or maybe you're trying to add to your group. You got to be able to sit there and realize that, tabletop role-playing games may not necessarily be for everybody who's sitting at your table. I know people who have sat down, played with my gang and and they were just like, I found it boring. And it's fine. I'm like, okay. And, like my nephew was like, boring? What are you talking about? I was like, no, I get it. I understand. It's not a video game. It's not constant, flashing lights, moving images, quick cuts. I get it. I understand that. So Agile said, what's the topic again? Flaming Heron says, it's like most things, some people just won't ever be good tabletop role-playing gamers. I'm not necessarily saying good or bad. A bad player isn't necessarily a problem. Somebody who's like, maybe not coming up with the greatest ideas and things like that for the group, not an issue. Most tables do have the leaders and then the others who are kind of like, okay, well, I'm just waiting for my moment in the spotlight this session. Okay. Agile Monk says, tabletop role-playing games are not for everyone, but they are for anyone. I agree with you on that. I certainly do. Certainly do. All righty. That is it for this time out. If you joined me late, next week we are going to do things a little bit differently. So we are going to do some first looks during the live show. Some episodes we'll do a topic. It's not going to always be a topic. It's not always going to be an unboxing or a first look. We're going to kind of shake things up a little bit. What I will do my best to do is actually share what we'll be taking a first look at the day before. So I will share that. Well, the funny thing is if you actually pay attention to the YouTube channel, you normally have the title of the next stream about an hour after this one ends. So, but GlueRx says, Troll Lord made some news yesterday. Castles and Crusades is going to have a starter set this year for GaryCon and a Foundry virtual tabletop module expected by April. Well, funny enough, they were hoping to have that Foundry module done for the holidays last year. So it's kind of slipped, I guess. Chris Lundgren says, trying to get board gamers to try role-playing games at their church is like pulling teeth. I would also say I think there's still kind of a stigma to role-playing games. So, church goers may not necessarily be like where I would go in search of new players. I'm not saying that church goers don't play role-playing games. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm sure there's probably some folks in that board game group who are probably like, no, role-playing games are bad news, kind of things. But interesting that they're going to have a starter set. Well. Kind of curious. Kind of curious how that would be. Are they going to go and put it together from scratch? Or are they going to kind of cherry pick from, say, the player's handbook, maybe toss in a couple of things from the Castle Keeper's Guide? I'm wondering. I would hope they would start from scratch. I really would. But Troll Lord Games is pretty well known from being kind of established, just like my review I did for Amazing Adventures Chronicle Keeper's Guide. I indicated it's the second edition of Amazing Adventures. That's kind of how Stephen Chenault referred to it when we were talking at GaryCon. I posted the video, and then Grace from Troll Lord sent me an email and said, oh, hey, please do me a favor. Could you change the title? Because it's really not a second edition, because Troll Lord Games doesn't do editions. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I thought to myself, so what is Reforged? I get it. It's just tweaked and stuff like that. But I mean, there are a lot of companies out there, if they, change the forward to the rule book, it's a new edition. So, all righty. Okie dokie. So tomorrow we'll do an AMA. We will wrap up the month. We will just hang out, and I will do an Ask Me Anything. So if there's any questions that are popping around in your mind, feel free to roll them out there. And of course, if you want to shoot me an email, that's fine as well. So there's that. Okay, that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already yet. If you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. Will not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live currently Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. We'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of the Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide to 2024 from Wizards of the Coast. Should point out, if you'd like to win a copy of this book, I will be giving one away. I'm going to announce the winner on tomorrow's show. So you've got to get into the running by about noon tomorrow. So just letting you know. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, big tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as I just babble on and on and on. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,100 videos here on the channel. Much appreciated. I will be back tomorrow. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your game.